Is the Samsung Galaxy A22 5G a good phone to buy in 2021? Well, in this video, we're gonna find out. What's going on, guys? Kalipa's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're gonna be taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy A22 5G and going over what kind of value it provides in 2021. Before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. That being said, let's get into the video. So this phone has a 6.6-inch TFT display with a 90 Hz refresh rate, a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 399, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen to body ratio of 82.3%. We got a water drop notch up here for the front facing camera, and this camera is 8 megapixels. Right now I have the brightness at 100%, and I would say the display looks really good. So a few things, I'm not a huge fan of the water drop notch, although I will say for this specific phone, the notch isn't very intrusive, so I don't really mind it. I just think it would have looked better with a hole punch. That and the bezels are a little bit on the thicker side. It's really not too bad, but I don't like this bottom lip down here. I don't know why they do this on phones. I wish they just had it really thin like most of the higher end phones so it can get a nicer, more modern look. But overall, I don't mind the design of this, and really the display is the main part of the phone that really matters, and this display is really good. First of all, it's 6.6 inches. That's a tiny bit above average, not enough to the point where it feels gigantic, but at the same time, it's still noticeably bigger than average. And that's gonna give you a good experience with content consumption. So whether you're viewing photos, watching videos, playing a game, even reading, everything's gonna be better on a bigger display. And in addition to that, for stuff like viewing photos, the resolution is gonna help a lot, being a 1080p display. And for stuff like videos and gaming, having a 90 Hz display is gonna help a little bit too. So overall, I'm really happy with the display of this phone. For storage, we got 128 gigabytes of internal storage with micro SD card expansion, so that's really a lot. Whether you're an average user who doesn't do a whole lot on your phone, or you're more of a power user who has lots of photos and videos, lots of apps, pretty much everything, this phone is gonna be good for you as far as storage goes. You can always put photos and videos on a micro SD card if you're really filling it up. And then with apps, you would need a ton of apps that are all really large files to take up that much space on this phone. So either way, you're most likely gonna be set. Now that being said, I do want to bring it to your attention that it's possible the variant that you're looking at might have a little bit less storage and less RAM. This specific variant does have 128 gigabytes of internal storage, but there are other ones out there with 64, I believe, and potentially less, so keep that in mind. Now this phone does not have wireless charging, which is not really that much of a surprise to me. But at the same time, I still do wish that mid-level phones would start to get wireless charging. Every time a new phone comes out, I hope that the manufacturer implemented that feature, but unfortunately not yet. Maybe next year, but unfortunately, we're still not there. That being said, however, this phone does have a fingerprint scanner and face unlock, which are both real nice security features to have. The fingerprint scanner is right here on the power key, one of the two places Samsung has been putting the fingerprint scanners these days. The other one with the A series is on the display, but for this specific device, it is on the fingerprint scanner. I personally like them both pretty much equally. Each style of fingerprint scanner does have its own advantage, so let's give this one a try and see how well it performs. Gonna lock the phone up real quick and let's give it a try. Oh, there we go. That was real fast. One more time. And there we go. So as you can see, this fingerprint scanner is real fast and responsive. I don't think it would have been faster with an in-display fingerprint scanner. For that matter, only a few in-display fingerprint scanners I've ever used are actually as fast as a fingerprint scanner that's on the power key. So as far as practicality goes, this fingerprint scanner is pretty much as good as it's gonna get The only reason I like the in-display fingerprint scanners sometimes is because it looks so nice. It looks really high-tech, kind of futuristic vibes. I really like that, but with the power key, we're getting a lot more practicality, so I'm happy with this. For the rear camera setup, we got a 48 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. This phone does not have a macro camera, which personally I don't think that's a big deal, because a macro camera, to me at least, feels sort of useless. I don't ever use it, and I don't know anyone who does, but there are gonna be people who do want a macro camera, so if you are one of those people, then this is probably not gonna be the device for you. That being said, other than that, I would say this phone has pretty much every feature you could ask for, especially for a mid-range phone. This is a photo taken with the main rear camera of the device. I think it does look really good. I like the colors, everything looks natural. The sharpness is really good, not too much, but also just enough for the picture to look really high quality. The focus is really good, I'm really impressed by that. Overall, it's a good picture. So this photo was actually taken using portrait mode. So as you can see here, the depth sensing camera works really well. Sometimes in phones that aren't particularly high end, when you use portrait mode, the blur gets into parts of the picture that you don't want it to be in. But with this phone, portrait mode does work really well and it looks super professional. I don't see any part of this picture blurred out that I don't want to be blurred out. So this just goes to show how high quality this camera really is. This is a photo taken with the ultra wide camera. Now, honestly, comparing this ultra wide camera to lots of other ultra wide cameras of phones in this price range, I wouldn't say that this is the best ultra wide camera out there. It's not quite as wide or as high quality as a lot of the other ones, but it does get the job done all the same. This phone has a max video quality of 1152p or 2K in the rear camera. I haven't actually seen a phone that can shoot 2K videos. I guess it's a little better than 1080p. Just by numbers, I'm assuming it's not as good as 1440p, and it's nowhere near as good as 4K, so I don't really understand the point of it. If you're really looking for a high quality video, then I imagine you would want a phone that can shoot 4K, but a lot of people who shoot videos professionally don't really shoot in 4K, they usually shoot in 1080p. Like personally for me, all the videos on this channel are in 1080p. I don't shoot 4K videos, and I know a lot of people who do videos professionally who don't use 4K. So it's not really a big deal that this phone can't shoot in 4K, but at the same time, I don't really know when anyone would use 2K. But let's take a look at the video sample I shot in 2K on this phone and see how it turned out. We're doing a quick video sample with the Samsung Galaxy A22 5G. I don't know why I didn't just do this in the normal review, but better late than never, right? We are currently shooting in 2K at 30 frames per second. Also keep in mind the quality of the audio. So the video quality of this phone is actually pretty good. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of is the audio quality. The microphone in this phone is not the best. I would say if you're trying to shoot videos more professionally and want better audio quality, maybe get an external microphone for this phone. Otherwise, everything else is pretty decent. Internally, this phone is getting 6 gigabytes of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 5G processor. Now this is where it starts to get really impressive. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone and it came back with a single core score of 561 and a multi-core score of 1726. So this is actually really impressive, especially for a mid-range phone like this. Definitely exceeded my expectations. So this phone is going to be able to do pretty much any task you want it to, whether that's simple stuff like going on social media, web browsing, or if you want to do stuff like high performance gaming, video editing, that sort of thing. No matter what it is, the 6 gigabytes of RAM is going to help you out a lot, and this processing power is really good. There's really not going to be a whole lot that this phone struggles with. Maybe if you're playing a super high-end game like Fortnite or editing a 4K video, which I don't even know that this phone can do, then maybe it would struggle. But other than that, For daily activities, this phone's gonna be perfectly fine and better than most mid-range phones. For battery, this phone is really impressive too. This phone has a 5000 milliamp hour battery. This supports 15-watt fast charging, so that's really impressive. If you have a more mobile lifestyle and don't have a whole lot of time to charge your phone, this phone is gonna be really good for that, because even if it does run out of battery during the day, which is unlikely considering the size of this battery, you can still charge it up a lot more in a shorter period of time than other phones that don't support 15-watt fast charging. In addition to that, a large battery means this phone is gonna last a lot longer without needing to be replaced, because the battery, even though it still degrades just like any other battery, you're not gonna notice it nearly as quickly. The only thing I really don't like about this phone is the fact that it doesn't have NFC. NFC is the technology behind Google Pay, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay if you have an iPhone, you name it. All those contactless mobile payment services that are becoming more and more popular and widely used. With this phone, you can't use those services, unfortunately, because it doesn't have NFC. And I think that's a big disappointment, because with all the features, all the processing power, the fact that this phone is a 5G phone made in 2021, I would think that it would have NFC. Now that being said, again, keep in mind there are several different variants of this phone. The specific phone in my hand does not have NFC, but there might be a variant out there that hasn't hit the market yet that does. So keep that in mind. In case you happen to find a version of the phone that does have NFC, this specific variant does not. But that being said, I do think NFC should be in pretty much every phone nowadays. Maybe a $30 phone you get at Walmart, I understand why they might not put it in those phones. But for a phone like this, a 5G, definitely at least mid-range phone, I would expect this phone to have it. So in conclusion, is the Samsung Galaxy A22 5G a good phone to buy in 2021? I'm gonna say definitely yes. I have very few complaints about this phone. The NFC thing that I just went over is one of them. The other thing is maybe if the display was a Super AMOLED display instead of a TFT display, it would be a little bit better. Maybe if it had wireless charging, which pretty much no mid-range phone does anyway, so that's not really that much of a factor. And maybe for the people who like macro cameras, if the phone had a macro camera, or better yet, make it one of the first mid-range phones to have a telephoto lens, that could be really cool too, because then you could use it as a macro camera and zoom in on farther away objects. Maybe that would be an improvement. Or for video, give the phone the capability of shooting in 4K instead of 2K. Other than that, I really don't have any complaints about this phone. One last really nitpicky thing is maybe use better materials. This phone isn't bad by any means, but at the same time, the materials do feel a little plasticky despite looking good. So having maybe a little metal on the sides or a little bit better glass on the screen would give it a more premium look. But other than that, I honestly think this phone is one of the best phones that's come out this year for the price range, and it's absolutely worth considering in 2021. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you want to learn more about the phone, as always, you can definitely check out the full review of the device on the channel. And if you happen to be watching this video after you bought it, definitely check out my beginner's guide and tips and tricks video for this phone, where I go over a bunch of different things that you're going to want to know about it when you're setting it up for the first time. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. But that being said, I will see you in the next video.